Hello, everybody. Do we have audio? If we have audio, I'll keep going on here. Just let me know. I'm trying to put the shock mount on this Shure KSM 32 for a few minutes. It's maddening. It fell apart in the cabinet. Let's see here. We
Audio's
have audio.
good.
We have it. All right. I have Addison over here.
What's up?
He's going to be asking the questions that you asked. So in a way, he's like a surrogate you. Is that a good way to? That's a good band name, Surrogate You.
I accept.
This shock mount, though.
Let's talk about it.
Oh my gosh. I can't. Here's the problem is I can't get it off my mind. Okay.
Talk to us, Josh.
All right.
This is therapy moment right now.
I don't need therapy.
You don't?
I do, but not here.
Not here.
Okay.
That mount is shocking, someone says. You want me to dive in?
Yeah, we have how many
We have
questions?
98 questions, y'all.
98.
Yep.
Our goal is an hour. But we're committed. We'll see what happens.
That's it.
I'm just going to sit here and do my best to answer these. And Addison's going to start asking.
That's it. And just a reminder, too. So we're going to do our best to get through all of the questions on Patreon that were posted. So I'm not going to watch the chat super close, just so you know. But I will be in the chat.
Yeah.
So,
I want to just say one thing because you're all patrons.
Yep.
I posted a lot of stuff on Reverb yesterday. A $500,000 Klon, $1 million collection of Sovtecs. 99% of people understand that I'm trolling. 1% do not. So if you're out in the wild, just say he's having some fun. Chill out. We'll move on from that.
All right. First question from Francisco Gulen.
Okay.
Any cool new boutique pedal companies we should be keeping an eye out for? I recently purchased a pedal from a European company by the name of Reeves Electro, and I'm digging the craftsmanship and tonal quality.
There's so many. We have a drawer full of new stuff people have sent. Man, the Collision Devices would be one I would bring up. They have this it's right there. I haven't memorized the name, but
can we get it?
Yeah, it's fine. Or you can get it. Collision Devices. This pedal is like so cool. It's called the Black Hole Symmetry. This thing. It is, I don't know, it's focus or not. Whatever.
It's on manual focus.
Oh, manual focus.
Yeah, hold it close to your face. There you
Fancy.
go.
This thing's really cool. Black Hole Symmetry by Collision Devices. It's wild. So that'd be one for sure. I'm looking. I have the new wall in front of me here. I mean, there are some companies that have been around for a while that might feel new, like Fuzzerocious. They're newer. I really love his work. Yeah. What about you? Have you seen anything? Because there's so much stuff coming in the door here. There's like 20-ish pedals a week.
Yep.
And then people send stuff, and we're very clear, like, we only do what we want to do on the show. So there's no guarantee we'll ever show anything just because you send it. But sometimes things are really cool. So we do have a drawer full. We'll do an episode about some of the stuff. I'll also just say, Tim Guitars makes some really cool stuff. There's the Pit. It's like a rat style pedal. So that's another one to check out. I think they're Australian or New Zealand.
This one's a more well-known for me, but the Automatone comes to mind. Like, we haven't done an episode on that yet, but it's incredible. Like, that's like a mainstream thing. It's really good.
Yeah, we have a really nice live episode planned. We're doing the best pedals of 2020, and that'll be when we get back from Christmas break. The 5th, it's a Wednesday?
Wednesday
5th
the
or
6th,
6th.
I believe. Yep.
So that'll be a live Wednesday episode, and we'll probably cover some new things. Cool.
Nice. All right. Thanks for the question, Francisco. Next one's from Aaron. I'm just starting to get into pedal building, repair, mod world. Thanks for the influence, Josh. Wondering what the best resources online are for getting a good grasp on basic concepts. Also, any good tips for diagnosing issues in broken pedals?
Yeah, I'll start backwards. So diagnosing issues with broken pedals usually break mechanically, meaning foot switches, power jacks, battery connectors, input output jacks. Those are always good places to look. The second place to look is, did someone plug in the wrong power? In most cases, you can physically see a component near the power jack, like a diode or a resistor that's melted or burned in half. And in most cases, you can smell it. People make fun of me here because I will open up pedals and smell them, but smell teaches us things.
You said that to me yesterday.
I did. So then getting into it, my number one advice is learn some small signal electronics, learn some basic electronics. And that doesn't need to feel as overwhelming as it might feel. Learn how to read a schematic, learn what a capacitor looks like on a schematic, a resistor, a transistor. What are the three main types of transistors? Just learn that basic stuff. Learn an op amp. What is it doing? It's not, if I can do it, it's not, rocket science. So just learn some basic principles. My favorite electronics book ever is Small Signal Electronics by Doug Self. Now that book, it will be overwhelming if you've never done anything. So I would first start by going to somewhere like DIYstompboxes.net. I'd go to Small Bear Electronics. I would build some kits from places like Build Your Own Clone or StuMac. I'd get my feet wet with understanding some basics. Don't try to be some creative wizard off the bat. Build some classic things and get your head around it. When you're learning guitar, you don't pick up a guitar and start playing the hardest guitar stuff ever. You learn Twinkle Twinkle and Come As You Are, and then you build on top of that. So treat circuits the same way.
Love it. Any chance of Patreon exclusive pedal or merch?
We've said we're going to do that. It's been so busy. Let's make a note.
I'll make a note.
I don't have my notepad, but we're going to make a note. We will release a Patreon exclusive shirt within a few months.
I'm making a note.
I mark my own words.
Consider yourself marked.
In the comments of this video in Patreon, not on YouTube, let us know some ideas for the shirt. That'd be fun. Don't put it on YouTube. We'll never see it. Put it in the actual comment section of where we posted the link to this live if you have an idea for a Patreon shirt.
Okay. Let's see.
No one else is in the room. I just saw that comment.
Oh, yeah. Just Josh and I. Mackenzie Elizabeth says, I have a few questions about offsets. I'd like to get a Jazzmaster, but I'm open to getting a non-Fender offset. Any recommendations as to what to get? If I do get a Fender, I'll probably go to the mod shop, how I designed and ordered my Telly. But I don't think the mod shop guitars have a rhythm circuit. Is it important, useful to have that for people who generally like playing surf indie alternative? And then he asks, or she, I apologize, could possibly be a girl. Also, any particular recommendations of models from Fender? Leaning towards one of those because it's what I know.
Yeah, I always play, for the most part, I primarily play the Built. You've all seen it. It's over there. It's the one with all the pickups. It is my favorite guitar. So go look at Built, B-I-L-T guitars. They have a lot of great offsets. Then if you want something a little more traditional, I do think Fender is making some really good models, but my favorite traditional style, it would be Nash, because I think the Nash Tellys and Strats are phenomenal. They do a Jazzmaster, but I don't like the trim that they use. I want a Mastery. I always want a Mastery system on any offset like this. Even the Fender models, they're just not as good. They don't stay in tune as good. They don't trim as good. They don't have the tension that this has. But this is a Seif guitar. So that's spelt S-E-U-F. S-E-U-F. Seif guitars. Go check out their Instagram. Look at their page. They make everything kind of custom, and they're not really any more expensive than a Nash or a high-end Fender. Not even a high-end Fender. This one's built just like I wanted it. So check out Seif.
They're pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Another one that comes to mind is Jennings guitars.
Yeah.
Don't you have one of those at home?
I have a Jennings at home.
A couple of them, maybe. Yeah, they're really, really good.
Fano.
Fano. Hello. Can't go wrong with a Fano.
But again, I feel strongly that it needs a Mastery on it.
All right, Niels. He says, I've got 2 questions. Any plans to do an episode on Love Pedal? I'm a big fan of the Amp 11. Can't figure out what circuit it's based on. Some people say Timmy, other people say it's definitely not a Timmy. So I don't know. And then number 2, regarding your episode on pedals with one knob, is it more difficult to design an awesome pedal with one knob because there is less user interface control of parameters as compared to a pedal with several controls? Thanks.
Lunch arrived.
We got lunch.
I'm eating fresh today, Addison.
Nope. That's McDonald's. Here's the thing. Josh really loves Subway. And
here's the deal. I don't wake up thinking about it, but
I don't know.
if you knew where our shop was, it's like McDonald's, Arby's, Wendy's, Subway, or like a 45-minute issue of food. So I just get a turkey sub on wheat.
Keep it simple, stupid.
It's hard to go wrong.
It is. That's great.
What was that question?
Yeah, 2 questions. Any plans to do an episode on Love Pedal? Big fan of
Okay,
11.
I'll do that.
Yep.
So, over here off camera, I have a huge collection of his stuff. I've talked to Sean in the past. Sean has disappeared. He's not responding to any messages from me. I was going to do an interview with him. He fell off the grid. The website's down. I have no idea. There's been some things go on with his company. I think he dropped all dealers about 2 years ago. I have no idea what's going on. I will at some point do an episode because it's fun. And I do like the circuits. The Amp 11, from a schematic standpoint, it looks exactly like a Timmy. I don't really have an opinion on whatever. It's a soft clipping overdrive. I mean, the Timmy is original, but it's still an op amp overdrive with soft clipping. People can stumble on the stuff, whatever. I'm not getting into that subject here. I don't know what's going on. I will do one because there are some really great sounding pedals. I think he's a master of the one transistor overdrive using the Electra overdrive circuit and turning that into so many great pedals. I mean, he's a master of that circuit. So
is that what the Eternity is kind of based
the
off
Eternity, I think that's actually a stripped down Tube Screamer.
But
when you look at like the Chula and all those, I mean, the dude's probably made 50 variations of this, like the tweed sound, the black face, all these fuzzes. It's all this one circuit that he's freaking mastered. Like, he's so good at it. Every time I breadboard, I've wanted to put out something based on this circuit, and this would even, honestly, a good episode would be, one of us will make a note, this Electra circuit and where it came from. It's these cartridges that plugged into an amp, into a guitar. I have them back here. Anyway, long story. I'm rabbit trailing. We're going to be here all day.
We're going to be here all day?
Yes.
Okay, regarding episode on pedals with one knob, is it more difficult to design an awesome pedal with one knob because there's less user controller parameters as compared to a pedal with several controls?
Yeah, it's a lot easier to design a pedal with a bunch of knobs. It just is. Because you're doing away with the need for restraint. You're doing away with the need for parameters. That's why when, if you plug into a Neve 1073 preamp with one knob, there's not a bad sound in it. That's a genius design and engineer. Could you do more? Could someone take a 1073 and do more with it? Yeah. Like, look at our color box. But there's probably a bad sound in the color box. It's harder to just make a decision and rein in a design. So when you see one knob overdrives and stuff like that, they are making a choice for you. They're saying, this is the best drive sound, as in my opinion, this is what you get. So I think that it's more ballsy and it's harder to do that. Yeah. That doesn't mean that a bunch of knobs is a bad pedal, but it is harder, and it's a more gutsy move to just have like a simple one knob.
Nice. Tim asks, no electrical engineering experience, wanted to start getting into reading schematics, circuit design, etc. So we just answered this question, Tim. Remind us of the book, Josh, that you said to go read, Small Circuits.
Doug or Douglas Self, SELF, Small Signal Engineering. It's a green book. It's like the Bible for me.
Yep.
I have a couple copies.
And then William commented on this post. He said, check out Skillshare online. So
yeah,
been a
and
partner with
Skillshare.
us. Really good spot to go learn stuff.
Yeah, they need a little more depth on. I actually was considering. I have no time. It'd be fun to do something like that. We had this live show planned. Like, so obviously we have the Wednesday lives we've been doing. That's a format. And then we have Friday shows. I had a live thing. We have the intro music. We did stingers and graphics. It was called Short Circuit. I was going to do it during COVID from my basement and teach people how to breadboard. It's just sitting there. It's just a time issue. I really would like to do one of those a month at some point. And we may be in a place where even in this room, if you can see this setup, there's like, if you can see the whole room, we have this setup we're trying to do where we can leave the live setup and then also film the episodes instead of tearing things down. Maybe there's some scenario where we could have a setup we're not constantly having to break down cameras and things and have time to do this circuit idea this year. I don't know.
Maybe not.
It's a pipe dream, probably.
Jeff asks, favorite way to use pedals in parallel?
I think it's using a mixer like the Land Devices mixer, DoD resistance mixer or something like that. You can use 2 JHS products to do it. You can buffered splitter, so put your guitar in and then buffered split. It has two paths. You run a chorus up here and a distortion on the bottom and then join them together with the summing amp. That's one way to do it. Yeah, I don't have a favorite. Honestly, I just do whatever's easiest at the time and pray that it works.
That's a good way to go about it. Do you have any experience with the DSM simplifier?
I don't.
We don't have one in here, do we?
No, I have had so many people tell me I need to see this thing. I know what it looks like. I don't know anything about that company or anything like that.
Nice.
We should reach out to them and get one, I guess.
Yep. All right, Rusty Little, he's in the chat. He said, my question's up next. So here it is, man. Some pedals are noisier than others. Obviously, high gain pedals turned up produce more noise. Is there any relation to build design era, specific technology, method of powering pedals to the amount of noise, or to reduce it? I assume isolated power supply, though thoughts on best of those would be appreciated too. I do use noise gate and suppression systems to help.
Yeah, that's a big question. So first of all, when you're creating distortion, you are creating noise. You're amplifying the signal of the guitar, and you're amplifying it to such a great extent that you're breaking it and you're raising the noise floor and all this. So it is totally natural for distortions to be noisy. Now, a lot of fuzzes and some distortions actually have noise gates that you might not notice. The noise gate could be as simple as a bias control on a fuzz kind of gates the note, and it actually is killing the signal when you're not playing, and you don't think of it as a gate control. And some distortions do this as well, kind of kills the signal for a moment, but ultimately you got to expect some noise with electric guitar. That's just going to happen. Power is a huge problem. Before the live, I was in here working with Joshua. He's our support tech, and we were just talking. Like he literally said he's been filling this role. He's new to the role. He's been doing it for about a month. He's done it longer, but full-time head of this department. And he's like, it is unbelievable how many people just have issues with pedals because of their power. And I was like, dude, you have no idea. After we're into 14 years almost. I would say 90% of broken pedal emails we have gotten. I'm going to this is no exaggeration. 20,000 emails in a decade, probably. I think if we did the math, 90% people have one spots or some crap Chinese power. So a pedal's only as good as the power that you supply it with, because power doesn't just turn it on and make it work. Power is actually the headroom of the effect. It's if your pedal is a balloon, your balloon's only as good as the air that makes it what it is. Well, power is what makes that circuit expand, and it gives it a threshold to operate in. So if you have crappy power, your pedal's going to sound like crap, and that has a lot of noise and stuff. So isolation is really important. I have a Pedal Power 2 right here. You need a power supply, and in my opinion, I'm going to do some diving in some new models, But I'm a huge advocate for there needs to be a transformer in that power supply. Now, there are some new things like Strymon. There's a company I cannot speak of yet. They sent me one to try. These are transformerless isolated powers. They seem to be working really well. The Gig Rig that I put on the board is working amazing. It doesn't have a transformer, but there's a lot of con artist things going on with power supplies. Like if you go to Amazon and type in isolated power, these things come up and they're just glorified one spots. Isolated by their definition means separate inputs. And it's like, that's so ridiculous. So a safe rule of thumb is if a power supply has this cable, meaning like your amp style cable, then it's isolated. Now, that's safe 100%. And then from there, there's obviously some new stuff happening that's working. And I'm not up to speed exactly on it. I plan on calling Strymon and doing a little interview and doing a power supply episode.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, rapid fire from the chat real quick, just off the top of your head. Blue Hippo's not based on a CE2. Is it an original circuit or what is it?
Yeah, George, I always assumed it was. And he's like, hey, just let everybody know it's not a CE2. So that pretty surprising to me because he takes classic circuits and did his thing with them. I have no idea. I have no idea what he did. I never got around to asking him. It's probably from the Craig Anderton books, or it's like a C. It's hard to say because anything I'm going to name, I feel like comes from a CE2. So I have no idea. I've never looked at it. You should tag him on Instagram and hunt him down. He'll answer you.
Plans to expand the Legends of Fuzz line. Yeah,
we're dropping 4 more in early 2021.
Best TC Electronic 2290 delay clone and a pedal. Do you have one?
I mean, wouldn't it be on the flashback?
Oh, yeah, it probably would be. Oh, good call.
Yeah, it is. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Any Boss compact pedals that can run on 18 volts that you know of? Nope.
I don't think there's any need for it.
Cool.
And they limit their supplies down to 9, I believe.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thoughts on the Iridium as a solution for not being able to use an amp in my apartment?
I think it's good. We have one here. You've messed with it for a bit too.
It's behind me on the desk.
Yeah.
I use it often.
We're going to do a live probably within January, February, I hope, which it'll be called Guitar Amps Suck. And we're going to pull out all of these options like that. We have 2 notes. We have the Milkman amp. We have tons of stuff. Quilter. Yeah, we'll show a bunch of that. I thought it was great. I feel like I like everything sometimes. For me, it's a little hard to be critical. Yeah. I feel like I can figure it out and make it work. But I do realize some people just have totally different sounds. But we'll do our best to show some of those.
Yep. Best radio capacitors to use. Some of my DIY pedals sound gritty and digitally distorted at low gain. Wondering if it's because of my caps.
No, it's not your caps. I mean, I don't really buy into the Mojo stuff makes that much of a drastic sound. It's fun. Like I build the 66 series. The caps are fun. They're really beautiful. It's an old technique. It's an art. It's almost a tradition to follow. But I've set for countless hours with caps and it's so negligible. Not saying it doesn't matter. I'm not saying that some people can't hear it and that it shouldn't be considered. But I don't know what the circuit you're using is, things like that. I think there's other ways to get that to sound better than worrying about caps. That's just my opinion. And I can be wrong, and I probably am.
All right, last one from the chat, then we'll go back to Patreon. Josh, in your pedal board episode, you had a Beano treble booster on your board. Any treble booster tips? How should I use one?
I put the treble boosters before my drives. I put them after fuzzes typically. It just depends. I mean, the best sound from a treble booster is like a cranked dark amp. That's where the magic is. So a Marshall type amp, or like with me, like taking a MiG 50, preferably even something like the MiG 60, which is more of a JCM 800 or a Plexi style thing. Turn up, let it drive. Taking a small wattage amp, and letting it distort on its own and then hitting it with the booster. So I put it before my drive. So a Klon or a Morning Glory, and I let it slam into those and distort them like I would an amp. That's my preference for it. just make sure they're early in the chain and that there's no buffers before them, because they're basically a finicky, needy fuzz pedal.
Nice. All right. This one's from Mitch. What was the local music scene like in the 90s in Muscle Shoals? Underground garage scene nearby Memphis or New Orleans? Were there venues in Muscle Shoals, etc.? There's a lot to this question, but I guess that's the general kind of.
Yeah, there surprisingly was a bit of a scene. Not surprisingly. I mean, Muscle Shoals, growing up there's funny. You have like this local folklore. I mean, I remember in the 90s realizing something was going on when one of my aunts or uncles was like, the Dixie Chicks are down there recording. And this is when country was huge. I think this is before I even got into guitar, but I remember being like, the Dixie Chicks. And then I think there were some other bands, you'd hear stuff like this. So you kind of figured out, oh, there's a studio. Okay, there's a studio. And then you learn all this history. Like you learn Keith Richards writes Wild Horses sitting on the toilet on Jackson Highway studio, literally. Bob Dylan is roaming around in the 70s doing multiple records there. Bob Seger, Leonard Skinner. Then you learn Dwayne Allman like learned to record in a studio and be a good musician at Fame. And there's just all this massive history. So many artists, Aretha Franklin, and then you learn about these Southern equivalents of the California dudes, the Wrecking Crew. But in Muscle Shoals, it's the Swampers, and it's all these white dudes in khaki pants and polo shirts playing all this R&B, and they're like amazing, and it's shocking. So yeah, that scene continued in different ways. In 2000-ish, my band, I was in a few different bands and played with different people. So from 96 through 2000 or 2001, there were a lot of bars. There was a bar on not a bar. It was like a club venue on Jackson Highway. You could throw a rock from it and hit Jackson Highway studio, which was shut down at the time. It smelled like cat piss. And, you go in there. I did my first demos there on ADAT. I mean, yeah, there was a scene. There were bands playing. There were like the rock scene was there. The 90s sounding, like grunge had this weird Southern equivalent that had happened. And we would also drive to Memphis and play on Beale Street or play in clubs there. And we'd drive to Louisiana. So yeah, there was a scene. I mean, how big was it? I don't know. In context to what else was going on, it's probably pretty small, but it was super fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
Could you talk about approach to tone chasing in general and flangers in particular for us a little bit? Love Andy Summers and just bought a long amp Roxanne on reverb. Still don't sound like Andy Summers, and not just because I can't play like him. What's your advice on going about getting the sound in your head or the one on your favorite record?
Yeah, I'm the worst person for this question. I think you're already laughing. I don't really chase tones. I think I've surrendered to my humanity, which is I'm going to plug into 10 distortion pedals and they're all going to sound the same because I'm going to tweak the knobs for 5 minutes and find the one sound. I do understand the pursuit of simulating a tone you love. I'll give it some time and then I give up. I don't know. I think there's that thing where I think we've said before, like everyone kind of dies at some point musically. I think you can also just settle in and be okay with where you're at tonally. I think I died about 10 years ago there, and I'm super happy that I'm dead there. Like, I love pedals. I'll pull stuff. You guys see the show. Like, I have fun. I never plug in a pedal and get bummed that it didn't do a thing. I don't expect anything from a pedal except what it's going to give me at that moment. And I'm happy. I put it on the shelf and walk away. And so I'm sorry. I wish I could give you some advice, but I'm the worst because every pedal in here has a good sound. And more importantly to me, I don't really tone chase because I don't necessarily, this is shocking. I don't care how these pedals sound first. That's second. The first thing to me is there a story? Is there a narrative? Is there something to learn contextually? Is there something to pull from history? Is there something that's interesting and valuable? A good story, a person you've never heard of that's important that should be shown to people? Is there someone's hard work that went unnoticed that I can show? That's number one. Number two is cool. It's a pedal. Let's jam on it. So I think I just let everybody down.
Maybe. I think there's also, this is cheesy, but there's also something too, like when Josh plugs into something, he'll play stuff and then I'll play that. I don't sound like that. There is actually something to Josh Scott playing something.
Well, yeah, to each of us.
Right. Absolutely.
And I think it's important to find that and love that.
Right.
For each of you,
Yep.
for all of us. Yeah, we've had this thing this last week about fuzz.
Yep.
Like we were on the phone and he brought his fuzzes and he's like, they don't sound right. And
Right.
I plugged in and they sounded right. And
Right.
but right was really, he was just hearing how I played a fuzz. And I was like, well, try thinking about it this way. And that's part of that pursuit too, is like figuring out, you just got to be okay with where you're at and try to create from who you are. We all are thieves who just don't get caught. That's the Miles Davis quote. Like,
That's a
artists
good
are
quote.
just thieves who never get caught.
Wow.
And we're all just pulling from things. Like when you hear me play guitar, I'm ripping off 5 bands probably. I mean, when I pick up an acoustic, I'm ripping off 3 or 4 people. But I made a casserole out of it. And each one of you have your own casserole tone.
Dang. Episode. We're going to bake pedals into more food jokes.
That would be hilarious.
Paul DeVries, TC must have scratched their heads with a pedal named the Corona Chorus. Do you know of any other pedal names that are strange, awkward, or misplaced in hindsight?
That is funny. I mean, tragic and weird. There's like a few memes. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. There was a line of OEMs called Quran, and I do remember someone showing one around like 9/11 or something. And it was like some ridiculous, I can't think of anything like that or like unfortunate names. I really can't. I can't, unless it's someone purposely trying to be offensive or something. But
those are the ones I can think of.
Yeah, it's like almost anything in here will offend someone, because if you're looking to be offended, you'll get offended. So, or misfortunate. In it. The Corona Chorus is like, that is a crazy womp womp.
Yep. Or people thinking the like Corona beer was like, oh no, that'll give you Corona. Like that was a thing a few months ago. So
I can't think of anything. There probably is though. I mean, there's so many names. Like I think back on DOD and stuff, they had to have some kind of crazy name issue. Yeah.
Any thoughts on Novo guitars? Rhett won't shut up about them. Wondering if
is Rhett on here?
No, Rhett's not on here. This is just a question from Daniel Thompson.
Novo, one of my favorite guitar designers. He had Fano. He built these at his home, and then he sold Fano to a company that makes a lot of gear. And the Fanos are still great, but Dennis doesn't build them. And then when his contract ran out, he started a company called Novo. They're in Nashville. It's him and several dudes. I love Novo. I've had a few. I don't know why I don't have one right now, because I have too many guitars.
I was going to ask you.
Yeah, I've had a couple. He built me one. It might be at my house. They're awesome. Yeah, they're a great offset choice. I don't know what to say. I mean, it's Dennis Fano. It's like a no-brainer. He's a great builder. They're unique. Rhett's probably one of the biggest YouTube advocate. Like you see it on there. So yeah, they're great. You're not going to go wrong buying one of those.
That's true. Every one of them I've played has been really stellar too. Short but sweet question. I have a jazz bass, have the Colorbox V2. How would you get a 70s style funk tone from the V2? Something Joe Dart-esque. Somebody said this is kind of aimed at Addison since he has great tone in a lot of the videos.
My mic stand's falling off, so you want to?
I'll answer.
I mean, I think there's a lot of factors there, like we just talked about tone chasing, but.
Well, John, not to say you need another bass because you can probably get close with a jazz bass, but the Joe Dart thing is flats. I'm almost positive on a P bass, and then we are also using a P bass. The strings are. Getting pretty deadish. Before I started here, the set of strings on there were on there for years and years and years, so they were really, really dead. So you could roll your tone back to kind of soften some of that high end stuff on your tone. As far as using the color box, all of our stuff runs into a color box. And we are you having trouble over there? Oh no, it's falling off the edge. We got this new table and these clamps aren't quite right. We're still figuring stuff out, but so yeah, you might try driving the preamp section of the color. Well, it is a preamp, but like the input step section just a little bit harder, just for a little warmer sort of I don't know, overdrive-ish tone. If you dig in, it might break up just a little bit. Yeah, I think honestly though, for that kind of sound, your biggest thing is probably a P bass. You're going to want to look at that. So, any thoughts, Josh?
That's everything I would have said.
Cool.
The biggest tone there is going to be the flats and the P bass versus the jazz bass. And then really, it's all just EQ. I think it comes back down to like, honestly, right now, get a Boss G7 and play around with it. And you might just nail the sound, changing the EQ.
Nice.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
It's not a magical answer, but it probably works. Yeah.
That's very true. Yeah. You can get a Tele to sound like a Strat, or a Strat to sound like a Tele to an extent. So EQ is huge for sure. Okay. I'm going to try the auto wah at the end trick for a guitar line on my next recording. Let's see here. What is he saying? Question: what is your take on software effects in recording? Does it do justice to a real pedal hardware in tech? Is there a happy place where both exist side by side in perfect harmony?
So the summary of that question is,
do you recording thing?
Can you use digital effects and amps and stuff? Yeah, absolutely. I remember reading, this is way back when the Pod came out. So this would have been like 98. I remember opening a Guitar World and there was an interview with this guy. I think it was 98. It was when the Goo Goo Dolls had dropped the Dizzy Up the Girl record. There's some really killer guitar tones on there. And there's the slide part on Iris that, the mood that they burn out on the radio. But it's like a really great radio song. And all these tones are just perfectly, they sound so good. And the guy's like, I used a Pod. I remember just being blown away. Like, it's mostly Pod on that record. And that wasn't even the best. So now here we are 23 years later. Stuff's so good. When it comes down to in a mix, in a front of house, I remember going to Katy Perry sound checks a few years ago, and my friends was playing guitar, and we're up, walking around on the stage looking at stuff, and they're using all Kemper. Like, they don't travel with amps anymore because you go into venues and everything's inconsistent. Everything sounds different every night. Plug into that Kemper, sounds perfect every night. Recording, it's just whatever you want to do. There's no excuse anymore for saying digital isn't usable. It's just not true. So, I know I have all these pedals in here. I will forever plug into a tube amp with some, boring classic guitar and like a few dirt pedals and have the same delay sound no matter what I do. But I honestly could figure out how to do it digitally and probably have it in a tiny box if I wanted. And no one would notice, but I would know. Maybe that's part of it.
Could be.
I would know.
Your experience is a big piece.
Yeah, the player experience has to be fun. Whatever's fun is fun. For some people, having a bunch of gear is not fun. Setting, back here, another episode we need to do is like the Line 6 shootout thing. Setting down an HX Stomp, that's fun for some people. I've had fun with it, but there is no more argument about is digital good enough. I don't think. In a rational, like, controlled environment that's not opinion and more fact, it's really tough to say it sucks now.
Not that he was asking for my opinion, but I do play modeling stuff with my pedal board in front of it, like a lot of the places that I play, just due to the nature of the venue, and it's really, really good, especially Kemper stuff. So, okay, Terry Dorsey, 9-volt versus 18 versus 120 volts power for pedals. Obviously, more power complicates things, but what's the upside? Any?
Yeah. So John Cusack, if you Google John Cusack, our 18 volts article, he wrote an article a few years ago, probably like 10 years ago. It's really good. And the premise of the article is you don't need 18 volts for a pedal to sound good. And he's correct. So what does it do and why are people so interested in it? So if you have your guitar basically puts out an AC, a voltage. So when you strum a note, you have like this black pin on a black shirt is not working, but it's fine. You have a waveform, right? So the peak of that waveform, let's make up some numbers. The peak of the waveform, let's say it's 7 volts, like this. Well, if your power supply is 9, the peak, let's say it went to my hand. So this is 7 volts. If your power is at 9, your clipping starts where my finger is. So if you hit your guitar really hard, you're going to clip into the 9 volts. So if you have 18, it raises it. So that's kind of the basis of how sometimes that works. So you just don't clip as fast. But your guitar is really never going to get near 18. So there's a bunch of does it matter? Just turn up the volume, turn the gain down, because it really comes down to, you can design a pedal for 9 volts that sounds great. You can use 18, you can do these tube circuits with hundreds of volts, whatever. It's just preference, and it's up to the designer. One is not better than the other. I don't know if that answers the question.
Good info. What's a pedal sound that you want to make but still not sure how to make happen?
The last one, I think I figured it out with the help of a company that has helped me design a pedal, and I can't really say. I've sought after this one particular sound for the fun of it for like 5 or so years, got a hold of a company. We became friends. We have a prototype. Nick has it at his house. There's zero rush to put this thing out, so don't even ask. But
how vague
it's a particular sound of one guitar track on a record from the late 70s by a band you'll never guess. And it's really haunted me forever. And I think we put it in a pedal.
Hello.
And it's almost not usable.
Agreed. A lot of hate for the DoD FX 57 hard rock distortion. Is it really that bad?
No, hold on.
Why
are people hating on the hard rock?
I don't know. I mean, somebody just posted the question.
Where'd it go?
It's not on loan, is it? Wait, did we ever get our pedals back from New York? I'm gonna have to check in. Okay, well, he's coming back. Don't panic, anyone. He's back.
All right. So first of all, I would say this is one of the coolest DoDs ever made. The FX57. It has level, presence, and distortion, but it has a delay knob, so you can add in echo.
Is that it? You found it?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
If people hate that pedal, then
they're terrible.
They hate themselves.
Ooh, the most thought-provoking part about the Klon episode for me was Josh's acknowledgement that it was a new circuit, meaning the Klon wasn't an adjustment or adaptation to something existing. Have there been other new significant, not new, weird things like the mini bar that that you can pee in? Are there any other new circuits like this in the last 10 to 15 years, or something that's even new to 2021? What could that look like? Have we lost the ability to make something new?
That's a great kind of a statement more than a question. Maybe it's a question. I think, yeah, the Klon is original, but it's also not. So defining original means most people are going to say, is it a clone of another pedal? So the Klon is not a clone of another pedal, but it's very basic, known, small circuit design. There's nothing magical. There's nothing groundbreaking. There's nothing that no one's never thought of before in the Klon. It's just a recipe using parts and techniques that have been around way before 1995, decades and decades and decades and decades. And that's why I said it's original. I don't see, he didn't take a tube screamer or something, but it's still someone else's ideas collaborated into a recipe. The only people with original ideas this is going to make everyone mad. But I mean, the only people who have the original genius ideas for the most part are the people creating the components. These are like literal scientist level geniuses creating new forms of transistors and op amps, and they're doing things on such a level, it's literally science, and they're creating these parts, and then they make a data sheet to share the creation, to sell it and teach people how to use it. They've already told you how to use it, and then we just put it together and cook with it. It's like we didn't invent flour, we just use it. It's like I don't know. It is deep, and I wish people wouldn't get so hung up on this originality thing, because it's kind of a bummer to how fun it can be to play guitar when you're roaming around wanting to only be original. And it's like, I don't know. I could stand on the soapbox for hours. One of my favorite quotes is a C.S. Lewis quote, and he says, "The man who tries to only be original will never be." And it's like, good luck. I think Abraham Lincoln also said, all the books in the world exist to show you that your ideas have already been thought of.
Whoa.
We just went into like a
Welcome
deep
to
philosophical
the
hole.
live stream.
Yeah, it is a soapbox. I get really aggravated at people's need for originality in guitar. Like, you're not playing guitar to be original. You're playing guitar because you saw John Mayer or Jimi Hendrix or Van Halen play guitar. Like, smile, have fun.
Nice.
Okay.
We're not even halfway through our questions, but
yeah,
we've been going for 45 minutes, so we'll try and get through a little quicker here. Just realized the other day, I don't think I've ever heard Snazzy Effects mentioned on the show. Do you have any experience with them?
I don't know what that is.
Cool.
That's why I like this.
Yep.
Snazzy.
Snazzy.
We need to check those out.
Yep.
If you have an effect you'd like to see mentioned, my advice is to let those people know that we really like highlighting new companies. It's a lot of fun, and that I'm totally into that. Have them just message me on Instagram and start a conversation. It'll get lost in the inbox of the emails, but Instagram's a good place to hey, Josh there, we have a company. I usually get through those conversations. It'll be me or Katie, and we have a way of dealing with those, and it's fun. I love hearing of these companies because there's almost a white noise amount of pedals. And so it helps to know what's catching some of your eyes, because we may not have seen it.
Predictions for future pedals and pedal market in the coming decade.
Same stuff. Like, I think if you watched, I think the most important Patreon long form I've ever done, which I think is going to lead into, like, I could do a book on the subject. It is identifying the eras of pedals. I think that is your answer. Again, there's nothing new under the sun, and we are just in a revolving door of how people see something and utilize it. It comes back around, see it. Oh, that's cool. We'll add this to it. DSP is the one element which feels like an improvement and a usable expansion on technology and how we approach guitar. But really, we're taking the DSP and we're just making a deluxe reverb amp with it. I mean, there's not a lot to add to guitar, and that's fine, and we should be okay with that. But for the next few years, I mean, that talk, I think I share in depth how I feel about the next 10 years. And I think that we are currently a little over a week from starting the next era. I think it is 2021. Yeah.
Would you ever be interested in doing a Zim card for the mini Zim, or ever working with Foxrocks?
Absolutely. I think I asked him and he never responded, but yeah, I totally would. It'd be fun.
Go bug him about that and tell him that you want us to do that.
You guys bug him and he'll hit me up.
More of a product request would be awesome if you could combine a Sweet Tea and double barrel to make a 3-in-1, calling it the Gatling gun. What does a Moonshine and Morning Glory sound like in parallel instead of stacking?
I don't know. I haven't done that. I don't know.
Cool. Any desire to share some hints on the next Legends of Fuzz releases?
Desire, yes.
Ooh.
Wisdom, says no
Okay.
because it gets out of hand really quick.
Yep.
And I want my dealers to have the surprise and help them sell them. They're really cool. I will say the first 4 were, Fuzz Face and Tone Bender, Super Fuzz. You had the Big Muff weird thing. So you had you had a lot of familiar, accessibly known, comfortable circuits. The next batch is weird. There's some things you probably have not heard of. You may have heard of them, or at least a couple, but they're going to get weirder as we go. I would like to say we'll continue to drop 4 a year for 5 years or so, discontinue some. So just keep that in mind. If you're a collector, I don't know how long we'll make some of them. I kind of think the first 4 may always be there because they're Tone Benders, Fuzz. People are going to buy those. This next drop, they're by no means limited, but I could totally see 1 or 2 of these being like not big sellers because they are weird, which probably has a lot of you excited. A small crowd will really get them. A few of them will take off and do well, and then we may discontinue some of these after a year. So just keep that in mind. They're really fun though.
Clay Riley says Fripp Fuzz ?
What?
Fripp Fuzz?
Fripp.
Never heard of it?
Is he talking about the guitar player Fripp? What Fuzz use? I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe.
I don't know. That was all he
Okay.
posted. Stan Roy, what is the input and output impedance of the little black buffer?
It's on the website.
Is it?
My
Nice.
brain.
Yep.
When I eat fresh a little bit later, I'll have some thoughts.
You can
It's
bring
a
it back.
really typical op amp buffer circuit. So, it's going to be what you expect. I'm not going to quote it on here. It's on the website. So,
Go look
and
it
I
up.
can't remember everything.
Lucky Sassafras, at what point does a clone stop being a clone and start being its own circuit?
When I don't know. I think to some extent everything is borrowing from something else. So, I think the popular definition is that a clone, in my opinion, a clone should sound and function just like the OG. If you're going to say something's a clone of a Blues Breaker, then you're not allowed to say a King of Tone is a clone, a Morning Glory is a clone. It needs to be a clone of the circuit. 3 knobs, same function, and replicate it. Legends of Fuzz are clones by definition. By my definition, they are exact copies. 1966 series, exact copies. But don't call the 3 series Fuzz a Fuzz Face clone because it's not. So that's my standard for it. I could go 30 minutes on that soapbox, but I won't. But that's how I feel about it. A clone is Dolly the sheep. Dolly did not have 5 legs. It had 4. Dolly was a sheep, looked like the other one. That's the test. So I think a lot of people call things clones, and they're not clones. A clone is a clone, period.
Nice. Austin Thomason says, hey, Josh, someone told me about projector amps recently. What do you think about them? You ever messed with any?
Yeah, I have one here in the shop. I showed it on the Weird Amps episode. It's not the projector model, but it is a public announcement amplifier modified into like a Vox EL84. It's the same exact thing that was in the projectors. Yeah, it's just like quick history lesson. Keep this at 20 seconds. Leo Fender used RCA handbooks for tube radios and made guitar amps. So projectors were amplifying film and through the same tube amp circuits. There's nothing new. Every amp came from radio, and these are just all the same thing, whether they're used in an auditorium for a kindergarten announcer or, a talent show or a church or whatever. Doesn't matter. It's just, they're all radio circuits. So yeah, you can make really great amps out of any old tube amp. I remember we were in England with Marshall and I interviewed them, which you'll see one day. And he said they found like an original JTM 45 under the floor of a pub where Jim Marshall had built it to use mics and talk through. And it was a JTM 45. It was worth like $40,000 or something because an amp is an amp, and change a few parts and make it for voice or for guitar.
In your talk about the eras of guitar pedals, you said you thought we were entering a new era now, but didn't give much detail. Obviously, it's hard to see the forest for the trees when you're observing history in a contemporary context. But do you have any further thoughts on this?
Yeah, that's the last question. I think it's purposely. I'm leaving it open. I'd like to hear everyone's thoughts on it. I mean, that's the point. I think we're coming back into people still love classic stuff, but DSP and technology is really, really good. So we're going to continue to see those things exist. And like never before, we're going to see amazing DSP right next to a hand-built germanium fuzz face, and everyone's going to be happy and nobody's going to be snobby about one being better. I hope that's what happens. It's kind of like a lot of the old cruddy attitudes are dead, is what it feels like. So I think that'll bring in some really cool ideas because people no longer whine about surface mount sucking because they realize it doesn't. And they no longer whine about DSP sucking because it doesn't. So I think we're getting through all that. Some of that's dying off quite literally.
Nice. What would be your version of the Earthquaker Life pedal?
Well, it's the Super Fuzz. So it would be the Supreme. It's basically the same exact sound. The Life Fuzz is based off of that circuit pretty much. Octave Fuzz. So yeah, if you like Octave Fuzz, then the Legends of Fuzz Supreme is very similar to the Life pedal.
Nice.
Tonally.
Can we now consider the EBO to be part of the pedal family? And would you ever consider making one?
That's funny.
Oh, you don't ask.
A classic EBO and then the Soundstone. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is an effect. It's a weird one. It's a weird effect that's not an effect. It's still man. It's like is it a capo type thing?
I think it's an accessory.
Yeah, but isn't a pedal? I don't know. It's a trick question.
More deep thoughts. Can I use the J? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I have no idea how to answer that.
All right. Sorry. Can I use the JHS little black amp box if I don't have a send return?
No.
Nope. Okay.
Don't ever put it between your amplifier out and your speaker. Don't do that.
Nice.
Just say you won't do it right now. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd be interested in hearing what you think of some of the multi-effects pedals, such as the GT1000 Core, the HX Stomp. There seems to be more of a move towards them. Have you ever used them, or would you?
Yeah, I have all the Line 6 stuff over there. The HX is amazing. Like 2020 was rough. I didn't get to personally do some episodes I'd wanted to do, and one of them was on the new Line 6 stuff, the HX and what's the other unit we have? I have both of them, whatever. It's the HX and the
HX effects and the HX Stomp.
I have both of those and wanted to do an episode using only those. It didn't happen. 2021.
Have you tried the Past Effects Chorus Ensemble?
Never heard of it.
Nice. I think I've seen a picture. It's a CE1 clone, basically, like a pretty dead-on clone.
Cool.
JHS website says the 500 series seems to be discontinued. Any reason why?
They are discontinued. I put out a lot of those units knowing that I think we originally dropped 6. I knew 2 would sell well. It was a kind of a love, like a passion project, I guess you could say. We put them out. We had some trouble with the Cubs. We had trouble getting the bucket brigades to work properly in a manufactured process like we were trying to do. So the question is, yes, they're discontinued. And they're discontinued because the Pulp and Pill and Color Box sold really well, but the other ones didn't. And we were at a point of growth where it was really tough to predict the sales of these and deal with orders and lead times and dealers not having them and dealers selling stuff they did not have to sell and sending us an email panicking. I sold one. Where are they? And it's like, well, they come in 8 weeks, and we just shut it all down. I think we're going to put out a Color Box 19-inch rack unit though, and supply that well and kind of start over. I wanted to put the 500s out 3 years before we did. And fortunately, the NAMM that I released them, Universal Audio, dropped their new interfaces with all the amazing plugins. And I think they killed the 500 market. And I'm not sad about it. I mean, it did affect me. And I probably lost money on that project as a whole or broke even, but it was really fun. I'm glad we did it. We still use the color boxes. A lot of people do. And yeah, it's just one of those weird things that it kind of worked, but we just let it go because other things needed to work more. Yeah.
Nice. What about novel distortion approaches as effects? Maybe like the crossover distortion in less than ideal Class B amps, high-end weirdness from crummy pulse width modulation implementation with some Class D amps. I wonder if pedal makers ever use these undesirable things in pedals intentionally. Yeah, they're all eventually exploited in the name of rock. Could this be a thing?
Yeah, I immediately think of the Source Audio first gen distortion. It's called the multi-wave distortion. It has all of those sounds and more. That's a great pedal. It did not get the love it deserved. That's like one of the coolest pedals ever made. I have it. I just don't want to climb the ladder and get it. I see it up there. But yeah, I think that people do. And I think Source Audio kind of perfected it in that pedal. So go get one used. They're pretty cheap. It's the multi-wave distortion, right? Is that what it's called?
Yep,
Yeah,
I believe so.
Yeah, it's kind of like a aqua blue looking color on a silver chassis.
What's an underrated fuzz that you don't think gets enough love?
All of them. Wow, like it's hard being in this room. It's hard to. It's all of them. Literally, I don't even know. I mean, I'm looking at this wall, so I'll go through the Fender pelt thing is amazing. It gets no love at all. The Teisco fuzz is amazing. Zero love, it seems like. The White Elk Wren and Cuff. I could go down. Every company has a fuzz that doesn't get enough love. Yeah. That's not the answer that people wanted, but it's true. There's so many good ones. The Seymour Duncan is amazing. Yeah, fuzz is funny because fuzz needs to be cool, and unfortunately, being cool doesn't work sometimes, and then you miss this amazing circuit because it doesn't look like you think it should look, and that's sad.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of that.
So try everything.
Try it all. I have a Marshall Vibratrim, which I dearly love. It's more on than it is off for me. I love the texture it adds. However, there's a real jump in level when it's on. It's noticeably louder when the pedal is on than when it's off. Is there anything I can do externally about this? Is it a buffer issue? I just want the input-output level.
It's louder when it's on?
Louder when it's on, yep.
Yeah, I mean, it can be modified with a passive volume control on the output of the circuit. You could ask somebody to do that. We would have done it back in the day. We don't have time. Or you put it in a true bypass looper with something like our little black amp box after it, and that becomes the volume control for the pedal.
Nice.
Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a hefty kind of, you got a looper and the pedal and then the thing there, but you could do that if you wanted.
Yep. Who powder coats JHS pedals? Paint seems to be a cut above other brands.
Ooh, right. Well, it is Ryan at Temple Audio. So if you've seen the Temple pedal boards, we made some pretty big moves a couple years ago, and it's been fantastic. We just walked away from Mammoth and all these typical powder coaters, and Ryan had been a friend. They're up in Saskatchewan, Canada, and they powder coat everything, and he does a great job. So yeah, it's the same Temple that makes the pedal boards, but he does all of our cases.
Nice. Who would you most likely collaborate with on a new pedal? Company or artist? What type of pedal would it be?
I'll collaborate with anybody, almost. I mean, there's something about everyone. The first collaboration I ever did was the Keeley Steak and Eggs. Amazing. He's a hero. And then Boss JB2. It's amazeballs. TC has approached me about doing something. It's kind of just sitting there. Things get sticky with them because of now, Behringer owns it all. So I don't know. It's an interesting dynamic there. I'd love to do. There's a lot of people I'd collaborate with. Honestly, I mean, it sounds cliche, but almost anybody to some extent, because I'm a fan of something. There's some story that I'd love to see reworked or something like that. Yeah, I don't know.
Nice.
You could almost name anyone.
Yep. When will JHS go digital? Is it inevitable that someday you'll have to?
Yeah, I mean, we have digital pedals. The Lucky Cat, the Spring Tank, the Space Commander. We have digital pedals, but what they're saying is, when will we go digital? There is a project that it's been on the back burner for a couple years, slowly worked on, conversations, people involved. There's a big DSP project. It would be a subline. It's pretty wild and awesome. But, 2020. So I just don't know. Something like that takes a solid year to even formulate properly. And then you got to, if I were to start right now and commit my life to it, it comes out in like 2022. So
it's a lot of work.
Life's hard.
Life is hard. We know that. Who's your favorite vocalist, and why is it Eddie Vedder?
That's funny. He's not my favorite vocalist. I hate how he gets hated on. He is actually a phenomenal vocalist. If you go to like Rick Beato's channel, he has a sub-series called What Makes the Song Great. Go look at any Pearl Jam song and he will correct you very firmly on how you're wrong about Eddie Vedder not having a great voice. My favorite vocalist, though, it's probably just something wildly off you would never imagine. It's probably a female artist with not hardly any guitar going. Well, I immediately think of Stacy Secret, like Darren King's wife. So the artist is Secret, which is French for sugar. I think it's French. Yeah. Sucre, Sucre. Mm-hmm. She's one of my favorite vocalists ever. She's incredible. I honestly, and I don't use this word lightly, I get like really pissed when people have never heard of her. I'm like, how is she not? No.
Agreed. Yep.
She was in Isley, which is another band some of you may have heard of. But yeah, like her. Japanese House, Amber. Nothing flashy, but like I love her voice. So you're probably expecting me to say Chris Cornell or like John Fogerty. No, it's going to be something very different than what you probably assume of me. Yeah, probably something with hardly any guitar.
Nice. Is it insane that some new pedals are priced at $900? What are your thoughts on this current trend?
Whatever you want to charge for your pedal, you have the right to charge it. If it's selling,
if people are paying for it.
It's. I mean, ultimately, that's the free market. I've seen people get pissed at me for charging $399 for fuzz pedals in the 66 series. And I was like, I want to do this project. It's really fun. People are wanting them. And if that's what it takes for me to do it and work in the evenings, like on those batches, oh man, I remember not sleeping that's real. Like I stayed up and I cut away my life to make those. And if I'm going to do that, I need that amount of money to make it worth it. And that's how it is. You don't have to buy stuff. That's me. I'm speaking for me. And when I look at something that's $1,000, like you don't have to buy it, And I think one of the problems in the internet age is everybody wants to give an opinion and change the world, and it shouldn't cost this much. It's really none of our business. It's not my business if a person charges $1,000. Yeah. That's my other soapbox.
Nice.
We really are just turning this into like a talk show.
It's a talk show.
Yeah. If you want to build a pedal and charge $1,000, do it. If people buy it, hooray. If they don't buy it and you had fun, hooray. We shouldn't be so concerned about, is there a right or wrong? No. Do what you want to do. I mean, I don't know how else to say it.
Especially if people are paying for it, by all means.
Yeah, the 66 series stuff sold. I remember the first batch of 80 sold in 5 minutes. And I was like, it like threw me out. Like I was like, what the crap? People are crazy. And then I did 3. We're going to do another batch.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't even know that I would buy one of them. I mean, I'm being
It's true.
really transparent.
Yeah.
But hey, it's it's fun, it's collectible. I absolutely hate the price gouging flippers. I hate that thing. Like buying the cool thing and then holding on to it and flipping it. It's like don't fall for that.
Yep.
And I do love that, like the Zvex Chase Bliss collab, the new Fuzz Factory thing. People were doing that, and now if you go to Reverb, they're like back down to $400. They were like up at 12. Just wait.
Yep.
Because it doesn't work, and don't get mad about it. People are gonna be scummy and try to do that stuff. Just wait. You'll get the pedal at a good price. If you wanted a 66, people did sell benders for $1,000. I had it. I was like disgusted. But if you just wait, $400. I saw one still for $350. Just wait.
Wow.
You can beat the scalpers.
Mm-hmm.
That turned into a really long, passionate answer. I'm sorry.
Okay. You do you, man. This is your live stream. Probably not a good question, but I have an old MXR on envelope pedal. What do you think about this? I also see they're like $450 used online. How come no one's making this anymore?
What's the model?
He says the old MXR envelope pedal, the yellow mustard colored one.
Yeah,
be back there if we got it.
I have one in the box right behind me. Yeah. So that, I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, I'm pretty sure the DoD classic DoD envelope is probably, I don't know, but I'm assuming it's the same circuit topology. They both have what's called a Vactrol light sensor with a light. That's how it does the envelope. I'm not real sure, to be honest. Somebody, no. Analog Man makes like an exact clone of that.
Nice.
Because I've seen it, and it says like he even kept the look, and it says Analog Man where he uses the fonts. It's clever. Analog Man makes the MXR one, and it sounds perfect. I do know that, if that's what we're talking about.
Nice.
It's like khaki looking. Anyway, if you're watching, go to Analog Man and buy one.
A few years back, JHS and Electro Harmonics released pedals named the Crown on the same day. Was this a Crayon? Is this a coincidence, or was that planned? Would love to hear the story. Thanks. Too big a question. And we still have about 40 questions left.
We're going to do 5 more after this.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
So you pick them.
Cool. Yep.
All right. I don't know how much to tell of this story.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big story. So no two pedal companies released the same pedal on the same day. Like just suddenly like trying to do something to each other. Because there were a lot of rumors about like, dude, whatever. Like both companies had developed a pedal minimum of a year in existence. A name had to be at least 6 months. And for Electro Harmonics, they're ordering all these thousands of boards. They're being delivered into New York City and assembled. I mean, they probably had the Crayon circuit and the boards because the name is on the PCB. The enclosure graphics are printed and shipped over, and they're assembled. Like, we just both had the same pedal idea. All I'll say, and I do not fault EHX for this, is I was at the LA Amp show. I revealed that I was about to release that pedal. It was a Thursday. The Amp show, I think it was a Thursday. I think it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. The Electro Harmonics rep, which I know, I will not name him, great guy, love him to death, even right now. He walked into the room and he saw the Crayon, and he looked like a ghost. He looked like like he'd been shot in the face. He was and he picks up his phone and he calls and walks out in the hall, and he's jabbering, and he walks back in. He's like, when are y'all releasing that? And that Monday they dropped it when I dropped mine. And so there was like this mad scramble for what's called in commerce, meaning the first person to sell a product has the right of commerce on the trademark. And they had already, Mike didn't know I was working on a Crayon, and I didn't know he's working on a Crayon, but they did see mine, and I don't fault them. He's probably sitting on $500,000 worth of parts, and they dropped it because they were like, dude, if he drops he has the right to forbid us to sell it. So Mike and I were on the phone that week a few times, and I fought his mark. I told him, no, man, it's my mark. I did it for, I had an in-commerce. I technically had a dealer sell before he did. And, Mike has always been great to me. Even through this, I'd call it a squabble. Like, there were lawyers involved, money, like a lot of money spent on how serious should this be handled. And he was super nice to me. I've been up twice since and filmed with him, and he's very kind. So long story short, that's the whole story. Is like, it was just a freakish incident, and we're all still friends, and both of us sell a crayon. And in the end, Mike owns the mark, and he has allowed me to use the mark as well. That's how it ended.
Can you use too many buffers on a board?
I love the segue.
Just moving along, man.
I don't get noisy, but I mean, hey, Robert Smith and Prince have had 15 boss pedals on a board. It's fine. Whatever. Don't believe all the jibber jabber. Just do it and see if it works.
Nice. What was the first line of guitar pedals you started collecting, and why?
I would say collecting would have been various big muffs for the Muffaletta. That was kind of what started some of this. That was a purposeful attempt at curating a certain thing. Before that, it was just like, had a couple racks of pedal. I have a picture that's funny. It's like my kids and I eating lunch in this room, and there's like just a small section of shelf. And I remember telling my assistant Katrina, she was putting the shelves up because she loves doing that stuff. She's psychotic. She goes, "Is this enough?" I was like, "Yeah, we'll never need more than this." And it was literally like, see where my hands are? It was like that much. And now the whole room is, anyway, it was big muffs because I wanted to do that tribute to the specific circuit. So I had to reverse engineer them.
Nice. What was the catalyst to changing the JHS logo? Market research thing, or did you discover that it improved the tone?
Tone,
definitely. That's what I thought when I saw the change and heard the change.
We just had that font that we found, had the J with the arrow. It honestly, we could still use it. It didn't really become dated. It was just kind of, I just felt like it was, after a while, I got really into graphic design and aesthetic more and started having opinions. And it was like, we need something cleaner. Like, the first straw was like, we tried to make a JHS trucker hat, and you put this other logo, and it, like, you couldn't put it in a circle. So you couldn't like create a dimensional logo with that font. That was like the straw. And then from there, we were just like, God, this looks so much better. So we kind of created that other font.
Nice.
Font.
The names and icons for pedals like the Haunting Mids and Unicorn have obvious origins, but where did the name icon for other pedals like the Emperor and Kodiak originate from?
This is an episode that should be done. A really fun one. Emperor. So I wanted, the point of the Emperor is that it would be interjected into a subline of pedals. The first in the subline was the Panther Cub analog delay with tap tempo. Panther Cub, analog delay, tap tempo. We'd had the Panther, but we shrunk it down, made it better, so it's a smaller Panther, a Cub. Panther Cub, analog delay, tap tempo. The second was, we need a chorus in this line. The Emperor analog chorus, tap tempo. So it had to be an animal. That's where the animal comes from. Emperor, it's cold. Chorus is icy. It was that simple. The Kodiak was another addition to that subline. Panther Cub, analog tap tempo. Then you have the Emperor, analog chorus tap tempo. Then what's he going to do with tremolo? It's a bear. Why is it a bear? Because my friend who worked at Conan O'Brien, I'd been up to the show and been there, and there was a discussion that there had been a bear on the show, and I wanted to know, where's the bear? So we rented time with the bear and filmed this entire thing, and no one ever saw it, but that's why we chose a bear, because I had this video. There's footage of me with a giant grizzly bear sucking on my arm, and they're feeding it Pop-Tarts and stuff. It's an unbelievable story. I remember like calling my wife and being like, I might die for this. And she was like, that's cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. This will be the last question.
This is it.
And since you just
Hey, we've gone like an hour 20.
yeah, we have.
This has been fun.
Yeah.
I hope you guys
been
enjoyed
great.
this.
Yep. This since you just mentioned Alice, I figured I would
Yeah.
ask you this question. How cool is she with this whole collection and what you do and all that stuff? And do you have any gear at home, or is most of the collection here?
You've been to my, what do I have at home? Just tell people, like, what is it like?
You have
Because I
you
don't
have
know.
you have a little Santa's workshop in your basement. You have the ability to mad scientist create whatever he's going to eat. That's how we know it's close to the end. He has a wall of guitars. He's got an crazy amount of parts for fuzzes, things like that. Just random stuff. I mean, you could start a whole other company in your basement if you wanted.
Yeah,
to.
and it's not a huge room, and
Right.
we run out of space. We're committed to this one guitar rack, so I have guitars, and my wife's awesome. This whole show historian thing and study and these like artifacts in a lot of ways, curating these pieces needed to research, like it's immersive. Like it's insane how much study and hands-on and why some of the things are in the room. And she really gets that I love history. She knows I would have been a history teacher. I would have ended up in some type of avenue just like this on another subject. I think it helps, obviously, that JHS is successful. That my hobby of all this is, it's a good job. Like it's like I'm not buying pedals and not feeding my kids. So yeah, she's great. I mean, she's great about it. I don't know how else to say it. And then, the end goal here, she knows, is there will one day, hopefully, be an actual museum that's open to the public. Working on some stuff now with a couple other museums to understand how that works. I'm helping with setting up and curating some exhibits for those people. So, it's a long game, and she really loves it. So I'm very, very happy that she doesn't really think twice about any of this. She trusts me with it to not be psycho. And I think generally around the shop, there's good checks and balances. I'm definitely a collector personality, and my dream is to be on the Antiques Roadshow. So like I'm obsessive about details and having all the units and knowing. I don't want to read on the internet and learn something. I want to own it and answer it correctly and not assume. And it just takes a lot of time and gear to do that. I know it sounds funny. It's like it takes a lot of gear to change the world or something, but it's like I don't see this like you might assume I see it. Like I don't have this room full of pedals to like gloat about it or think I feel more important. I really don't care about any of that. It's just like it's a long game of stories and narratives in this cobweb of the last 60 years of gear. Yeah, so she loves it, and I'm glad she does. And I think there are, like I said, there's checks and balances. Like Josh, chill out. That's happened a few times. Like, hey, you won't get to that. Let's pause. And there's some good. And I think Nick is a great check because he doesn't care.
Yep.
Because I'll get all excited about something. He's like, yeah, cool, let's film. And it's good. It's a good mix. If he was like me, it would freaking suck. We'd be homeless. We'd like have bought like an old Sam's Club and be living in it on the floor, and our families would have left us. But he's a good check. Like that doesn't matter. And then I'm like, oh yeah, you're right.
All right, bonus question.
All right.
Last one. Are there any Boss pedals that are in Japanese? Why are most of their pedals in English? Or why are most pedals in general in English?
I believe there are a couple I feel like I've seen before Boss was Boss. It was a company called Meg, MEG. It never made it public. And I think those original Meg prototypes, like you'll see a Spectrum, a PH1, and I think an OD1. I think there are some Japanese, but the point of Boss was Roland. I do not want to say all this. It's basically an episode, but Roland was wanting products for the US, and Boss was a huge part of that. So it's going to be in English. The Japanese market now, I think it's the number 2 market in the MI industry, musical instrument industry. But at the time, US was, and it still is huge. It's a huge market, but US was the goal of Japan. They were making things to sell in the US. So English is why. There's much more interesting Boss questions I may have to talk about in an episode that I'm working on right now.
What? But we won't talk about that
Nope.
because we're at the
We
end of this
won't.
live stream. That's it, Josh. Unless you got something else to say.
No, this is really fun. I really do enjoy these. I should have eaten before. My blood sugar has plummeted. I'm about to eat fresh though. So
Yeah, you are. It's been a super awesome, great year. Thank you, patrons.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun to interact with you guys. It's fun to get to answer questions and just like, yeah, we appreciate you. Thank you for helping us
Yeah.
do what we do.
Today's the 22nd.
Yep.
Tomorrow's 23rd. The next day is Christmas Eve and then Christmas. So enjoy that. Hopefully you have some time off. Be with your family. Call your parents. Tell your dog you love him or don't. But yeah, Merry Christmas to everybody. Merry Christmas Eve. Happy New Year coming up soon. So the show, we're all kind of off as of this. I think you go home.
Yep.
You're probably just going to walk around in your underwear for
Yeah.
like 2 weeks.
Exactly.
We have a couple weeks off and then we come right back. Wednesday the 6th will be a live episode, the best pedals of 2020. I'm excited. We'll probably do 2 hours.
Nice.
I think we'll start it at 3 to 5 because it's so much crap. It's going to be ridiculous and annoying. That's it.
It's going to be awesome.
All right.
Be
I'm going to
sweet.
end the stream. Thanks for all your comments. Bye.